Just before 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, Rudy Henderson was sitting inside a vehicle outside Lloyd's the Pie Queen's restaurant in the 800 block of 60th Street in North Oakland. While customers drifted in and out of the restaurant, a gunman approached the car. With no warning, gunfire rang out. Windows burst and glass flew across the seats. The man and woman sitting behind Henderson escaped with minor injuries. Rudy didn't. The man once described as Oakland's most powerful cocaine dealer was now dead. 8 months earlier, Henderson's 25-year-old son had been shot to death during a carjacking in East Oakland. But long before that fateful day at the restaurant, Rudolph Henderson was appearing in newspapers around the Bay Area, not for any crimes, but for how a chubby powerlifter from Oakland had transformed himself into a potential Mr. Universe. Henderson, at 30 years old, had already spent approximately 8 years lifting competitively. In the powerlifting world, he had developed crazy strength, but to become a bodybuilder, he had to change his routine. He cut more than 20 pounds from his frame, training approximately 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, at New World Gym in San Leandro. He entered his first bodybuilding competition in 1975 and finished 4th. And by 1979, he was preparing for the Mr. USA contest, hoping that success there could carry him towards Mr. America and eventually to the Mr. Universe stage. Henderson understood that a major bodybuilding title could bring magazine photographs, endorsements, as well as the pride of being Mr. Universe. But while the newspapers were writing about Rudy's bodybuilding journey, law enforcement already was familiar with his name. See, Henderson's transformation into a celebrated bodybuilder couldn't erase what had come before it. Henderson had already crossed the line from street-level dealing into international trafficking, serving time for importing heroin from Hong Kong in 1975. After prison, Henderson returned to Oakland in bodybuilding. To an outsider, it may have appeared that he had escaped the drug business, training around respected athletes, developing friendships in sporting circles, and just generally building the image of a businessman, a man comfortable around athletes, models, and entertainers. But the Oakland streets were never far from Henderson. In October 1984, Henderson was wounded in a drive-by, while another man, described as a suspected drug dealer, was killed. That shooting was a warning, as Oakland's narcotic business was changing. By the mid-'80s, heroin organizations were being dismantled. Cocaine was becoming more dominant, and crack was beginning to transform entire neighborhoods into fiercely contested retail markets.
Drug dealing problem has turned huge areas of Oakland into a virtual battle zone. Almost every block has a known drug house where customers come all night buying drugs and sometimes shooting up on the spot.
A kingpin who survived one era could become even richer in the next. And in 1985, one of Oakland's most famous drug bosses, Felix Mitchell, was removed from the street to serve Fed time. Henderson stepped into Oakland's cocaine trade as a major front-end supplier without the need to inherit every corner Felix once controlled. He only needed to supply the men that were fighting over them. The city's existing organizations wanted supply, not ounces, but kilos. And Henderson had positioned himself to be that supplier, supplying cocaine in bulk to men whose organizations controlled street markets across Oakland and San Francisco. Among those customers were Daryl Little D. Reed, associated with the Castlemont area, Jesse Powell, who San Francisco police believe was distributing Henderson's cocaine through the Sunnydale housing projects, Joe Broadnax out of North Oakland, and in East Oakland stood James Big Man Milton, Henderson's trusted lieutenant and one of the most important retail distributors in his network. The relationship was simple on the surface. Henderson obtained cocaine in wholesale quantities, supplying drugs on credit to selected customers. They processed portions into cocaine, distributed it through their crews, and returned the money. But credit created chains. Henderson owed the Colombians, his customers owed him, their sellers owed them, and every kilo passing through the network carried more than cocaine. It carried expectation, debt, and pressure. When everybody paid, the organization moved smoothly. But when one person failed, the pressure traveled upward, and eventually, one unpaid debt would place nearly the entire operation in danger. But before that happened, Henderson needed soldiers he trusted, and nobody appeared more valuable than James Milton. James Milton and Rudy had similar interests, Both gifted athletes drawn to bodybuilding, but Milton was headed down a dark path from early on. Milton grew up in poverty in Brookfield Village. He was a talented East Bay athlete who became addicted to heroin, which led him to committing burglaries in prison at around 21 years old. Behind the walls, he became part of the Black Gorilla family. After his release, Milton tried to turn away from narcotics and crime. Like Henderson, he turned towards bodybuilding, training at Solid Sweat Gym 6 days a week. Eventually, he became a manager at the gym, where he met Rudy Henderson. Milton developed himself into a championship-level bodybuilder, and for a time, it appeared that the discipline at the gym might carry him somewhere different. But a strong body didn't provide a steady income. Henderson recognized Milton's value as a physically imposing presence, with prison connections and the ability to command men who weren't easily controlled. He provided Milton with money, somewhere to live, and access to opportunities inside the drug business. Henderson would also invite him on trips to Gold's Gym on Venice Beach and heavyweight title fights in Las Vegas. Milton became one of Rudy's most trusted lieutenants, and by 1986, Milton was patrolling East Oakland with an Uzi, while dealers working beneath him, like Gregory Colbert, sold cocaine supplied through Henderson. He was Rudy's representative on the ground, a buffer between the wholesale connection and the corners. But over time, Milton eventually came to believe Henderson was using him. The chain of events began with a dispute over drug territory in Oakland's Brookfield Village. After dealers working Milton's territory were confronted and driven away, Milton returned that night with Gregory Colbert, Napoleon Butler, and another associate named Pino, armed with Uzis and M16s. They parked behind the Cosmopolitan Baptist Church and approached through a dirt alley. Colbert opened fire with the M16, while Milton sprayed the street with an Uzi. People on 85th ducked for cover as round after round ricocheted across pavement. When the shooting stopped, Milton realized Napoleon Butler, his cousin, had him returned to the car. He was found in the alley, shot in the back of the head. After Napoleon Butler was killed during the shootout, rumors spread that Gregory Colbert had accidentally shot him from behind with an M16. Colbert denied the accusation, but Milton began to believe it might be true. Before he could decide how to handle the situation, Oakland police raided Milton's home on January 13, 1987, arrested him for Butler's murder, and reportedly found weapons and drugs, including a kilogram of cocaine linked to Rudolph Rudy Henderson. Milton's daughter was also taken into custody. Facing the possibility of decades in prison, Milton was offered a deal: explain Butler's death, testify against Colbert, and help the FBI investigate Henderson's organization. The turning point came when Henderson refused to pay Milton's bail, forcing Milton to spend 3 weeks in jail before posting $12,000 of his own money. Feeling abandoned after taking major risks for Henderson's organization, Milton contacted the FBI after his release and agreed to cooperate against Henderson. But before that betrayal could destroy Rudy, another relationship had already placed him in danger: his connection to Colombia. At the center of Henderson's wholesale world was a Colombian trafficker named Alvaro Becerra, an Americanized Colombian with connections to the Medellin cocaine network. Becerra's offer was simple: reliable cocaine in high volume. From Becerra, Rudy could buy coke for approximately $17,000 per key, around $2,000 less than what he had been paying another supplier known as Green Eyes. At first, Becerra allegedly arranged a small order, approximately 10 keys worth around $170,000, paid for in cash. But once trust developed, the quantities grew and the payment terms changed. And instead of demanding every dollar before delivery, Becerra extended credit. Henderson was bringing in loads of 20 keys for approximately $350,000, 94 keys valued near $1.6 million, and 100 keys worth roughly $1.7 million. But that credit came at a cost, placing him in debt to people who didn't accept excuses. As long as everybody kept moving, everyone made money. But credit is only as smooth when the money returns. And by the end of 1986, Rudy's money stopped coming back. It all started with Joe Broadnax. Allegedly, Henderson supplied Broadnax with approximately 50 kilos of coke. Broadnax's organization cooked part of the powder in the crack and sold it in North Oakland. But before Broadnax repaid Henderson, another supplier appeared with an offer too good to refuse: 60 kilos for approximately $380,000. Broadnax used money that should have gone to Henderson to purchase the cheapest shipment. The plan was to sell the new coke, multiply the money, and pay Rudy afterwards. But on December 30th, 1986, the new transaction turned out to be an undercover operation. Broadnax was arrested and the money was gone. It's alleged that Broadnax owed Henderson approximately $1.1 million. Without that payment, Henderson's debt to the cartel reached $2 million. Suddenly, luxury cars and mansions didn't matter anymore. Rudy now owed people who had supplied him with cocaine on trust, and the man holding a large portion of his money was sitting in jail. Eduardo Donoso, described as a collector associated with Bassetto's organization, began pressing for payment. Then, apparently frightened by the consequences of the unpaid account, Donoso left for South America. In January 1987, Bassetto came to Oakland personally and contacted Henderson. By now, federal agents were monitoring Rudy. Henderson met with Bassetto at the downtown Oakland Hyatt Regency, bringing him $100,000. It was a large amount of money almost anywhere else, but against a $2 million debt, it was barely a gesture. Soon afterwards, investigators believe Henderson was told that he would receive no additional cocaine until the balance was paid. The well-oiled machine was beginning to fall apart, and then James Milton started talking. 3 FBI agents supervised the case, while as many as 13 others contributed part-time. The IRS had reportedly examined Henderson's finances for approximately 5 years, and the lifestyle was telling a story that reported income couldn't explain. Agents placed a court-authorized wiretap on a telephone associated with the North Oakland house they believed served as a nerve center. They tracked calls, pages, meetings, and money, and on May 31st, the waiting ended. Federal officials gathered in a Justice Department conference room in San Francisco to decide whether it was finally time to bring down Rudolph Henderson. The raids followed quickly. Agents from 6 federal agencies and the Oakland Police Department executed about 30 warrants across 4 counties, searching roughly 20 locations. Near 55th Street in North Oakland, investigators discovered a Mercury station wagon containing approximately 40 kilograms of cocaine, valued in reports between $738,000 and $1.4 million. Authorities also seized at least $350,000 in cash and around 20 luxury vehicles. Henderson, his sister Carolyn, and several alleged associates were arrested as part of a sweeping conspiracy case that later included cocaine, weapons, and continued criminal enterprise charges carrying the possibility of life in prison. After years of operating with confidence, Henderson's empire had finally begun to collapse, and its most powerful symbol was waiting high above Sonoma Valley. At the end of Grove Street, high in the hills west of Sonoma, Rudolph Henderson's success took physical form in an approximately 6,600 square foot mansion known as the Sky Castle. Purchased for about $2.8 million, the estate sat on roughly 11 acres and features multiple bedrooms, fireplaces, wet bars, elaborate entertainment systems, an indoor hot tub, and a sprawling master suite occupying much of the upper floor. This was also seized by the government.
Federal authorities are now moving to seize all of Henderson's assets under a new law that allows them to confiscate property acquired with drug money.
In January 1989, Henderson entered a plea agreement. And on April 1989, Judge Patel sentenced the 39-year-old former bodybuilder to 25 years in federal prison.
This man accused of supplying cocaine to Oakland's gangs was sentenced to 25 years behind bars today. That's 5 years longer than the prosecutor had asked for. Rudolph Henderson pleaded guilty to charges of selling cocaine, but after he heard the sentence, he tried to change his plea. The judge said, no deal.
Even before Henderson's case was finished, some of his cars began appearing on the auction block. In April 1991, the Sky Castle followed. The government set a minimum bid of $1 million and hoped to receive approximately $1.5. Rudolph Henderson was eventually released from federal prison in 2002. He returned to the East Bay and entered the used car business until his death in 2006.